Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, and welcome back. I just want to remind you that you can get all of my homestead science books on my website for a new way of teaching agriculture to today's youth and aspiring homesteaders by focusing on small-scale farming and self-sufficiency. If you're a school or co-op, feel free and reach out to me directly to set up invoicing. All right, so I was all set to say that what a busy week it's been, and I realized I probably sound like a broken record. Our lives are busy, and the last couple of months have been really hard. So to fill you in a little on what has been going on with the Hanners, when we got home from our cross-country trip, we immediately caught every bug that was going around town. We got the stomach flu, we got strep throat, the littles got croup, and then my husband had to have an emergency surgery to have his gallbladder removed. And then to increase this crazy, we also butchered a 700-pound sow, and calving season started almost a month earlier than we were expecting. We are exhausted. I have been working on a YouTube video to show the whole butchering process, though, but between 8 hours of footage and all the bugs that have been going through the house, I'm running a little behind. I will have a couple of calving and milking videos popping up over the next few days, and I'm excited to share those with you guys. So make sure that you hop over and subscribe to my channel, The Homestead Education. So we recently started selling pork boxes off of our homestead and pay-as-you-grow whole hogs. The pay-as-you-grow is an option to make it really affordable with monthly payments for either a whole or half hog from the homestead. Once the hog is paid for, which is about 6 months, they go to the butcher of your choice and you'll only need to pay cut and wrap. This saves you from having to raise the pig yourself and needing to come up with a lump sum of money all at once. We have customers in Idaho, Washington, and Montana. So this is something that you're interested in, please feel free and reach out to us at info@thehomesteadeducation. Now, from a business perspective, and a really vulnerable side of it, in September, I had to make the really hard decision to part ways with a virtual management team that I was working with. With that, I've made some extremely positive changes for the business that I feel genuinely good, authentic, and I feel like they're really productive. With that, I've set aside a couple of projects that were really important to me, and that's been super hard on my heart. However, I now have a full-time employee, which she's actually been working for me for several months, who has been absolutely rocking helping me do the work of 12 people. With that, this leads me to today's guest and my business manager, Hailey Patterson. She has been an amazing asset to my company and is also an aspiring homesteader. So she's coming on today to have a talk about those first steps about what it is to become a homesteader. As a reminder, I won't be recording a second episode on a weekly basis anymore. So we'll be doing a podcast how-to style episode on our YouTube channel on Fridays. So check out my episode from a couple of weeks ago where I have a read aloud from the Homestead Education Story series. I'll link that in the show notes, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any updates. If you're interested in learning or teaching your kids about horsemanship from a world record-holding mounted archer, check out Brandy Van Holten's horsemanship course in the show notes. So everyone, here is Hailey Patterson, my business manager. Welcome, Hailey.
Hello.
So I invited Hailey on today because we work together a lot of hours. And we realized that while we're working, we are constantly chatting about our own personal goals and dreams and desires on our homesteads or our future homesteads, and realized that what we were talking about, somebody else would probably want to hear because there's some really good stuff there, and maybe we'll leave out some of the other stuff. But do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, Hailey, so they learn a little bit about you and where you're coming from?
Oh, yes. Okay. Let's see. I have a 3-year-old daughter. We live in town in Bonners Ferry. Um, I think we have like maybe half an acre here. But I decided, so when we
It's a
moved to
lovely half
Idaho,
acre.
yeah, when we moved to Idaho, we wanted, this big property, like out in the woods. It was the housing boom, and it was
Oh
not a
yeah.
great time to buy a house.
Well, and that's
So we
actually
ended up
how
buying a house.
to say that's
Yeah,
actually
you
how
guys
I
bought
ended up
right before
meeting.
us.
Yeah, I ended up meeting Haley and her family when I was working in real estate because I was trying to find a place for her father-in-law to move up here and be near them.
Yes.
That was a very interesting experience, basically trying to buy a house for her father-in-law without him here.
Yes. Yep. And we did the same thing. I don't know, a year prior to him buying, we bought sight unseen.
Oh,
Um, we did not have Kody as a realtor, so our, our house is not as great as his. We're gonna flip this house at some point. I don't know.
you're
It's the
getting,
goal.
yeah.
We're close. We're getting closer. But we're gonna flip this house, and then our goal is to do a family homestead. Um,
So now what
we
is a family homestead?
So we are going to go in with my husband's niece, with Rick's niece. We're gonna go in. They're gonna come up from Montana. They want out of Montana. So they're gonna come up here. They're gonna sell their house down there, and we are gonna buy property. My goal is 10 acres. Um, Nobody else cares about the amount of land as long as it borders national forest, but I think that that's just the pipe dream.
Right. Well, I mean,
It's
national
not hard to
forest
do.
makes it where you have lots of room for hunting and dirt biking and those types of things, but it does take away with from what you can personally do with your land.
Yes, yeah. Well, and all my husband cares about is the hunting. He's like, skip the homestead, can we hunt? Um,
I think a lot of
so
us have those challenges with our husbands.
yes, yeah, I'm ready for hunting season to be over. Although we discussed after this weekend, um, he was like, I think I'm done. And I was like, yeah, I think we just need to cut our losses on elk season and be done. It gets so expensive, and
Sometimes,
especially being in town.
yeah,
He has to drive everywhere and gas prices. And I'm just like, I think that being done is the safest option for us.
right. Well, I told someone the other day, I said the reason my husband's liver is doing so well is because of stubborn wives and good food. So we just got to keep pushing him.
Absolutely. So yeah. So our goal is a family homestead. Um, my problem is I'm very I'm dreaming very big.
That's okay.
And so I think like being brought back down to reality and the fact that I can't just have it all right now. And even when we get there, like I can't have it all in one day. Um,
That's
it's
the hard
very
one
hard
that
for me.
my husband and I want to do everything yesterday. So,
And I'm the same way. And I want the big homestead and all of the animals and the giant garden and everything today.
yeah, we tried to do it all today. And yeah, I mean, when we first moved to our property, we had a few animals already that traveled with us. And we moved into like a perfect piece of property that like the garden beds were already ready to go. I just had to I literally dug up my tomatoes from Oregon and brought them up here and replanted them and got tomatoes off of them. So, but not everybody gets that. And there was still a lot that we had to do moving forward because I mean, that was just the second half of summer one,
Yeah.
And I mean, my husband was the type that like the goat looked at me sad, or we should have dairy cows. And I'm like, you're insane. We are doing none of those things. I'm the type that's like, if we're bringing an animal home, it has to have a job, a purpose. It needs to feed us or make us some form of income. And he's like, its purpose is that it's cute.
See, and that's how I am too. I'm like, I need like a little baby mini Highlander cow just because I don't want a dog. Like, so
Right?
I can have a cow and it's like a dog, but it's not a dog.
Well, I remember your husband's face the other day when you guys were talking about not having a dog. And I was like, well, you're going to need a dog to know if somebody's getting into your chicken coop. And he looked at me like totally straight faced and was like, we're getting chickens. I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Hmm.
you haven't got that far yet. Okay, like let's just back
Yes.
off.
So, and actually in our ambitions to start our family homestead, we have a group chat with his niece, and we have we call it the 3/4 rule. And so her and we are so on board to have every animal that you can have on a farm. I mean, Old MacDonald, that is us.
I'm all about it.
Our husbands are not so on board.
Because they know that
So
they have to build the fences.
yes. So we implemented this like 3/4 vote where, I say, hey, let's get an alpaca. So I text her and I'm like, can we have alpacas? And she's like, I'm in. And then her husband responds and he's like, absolutely not. And then I looked at Rick and I was like, can we have alpacas? And he's like, maybe. I'm like, all right, 3/4 maybe. Like, we can do this, and then it was chickens, and everybody was kind of all right with chickens because, chickens are pretty low maintenance. Like
They are, and
they're
they get rid
easier.
of a lot of kitchen scraps. They actually can save you some money. So
Right. So like they're the starter animal, and like I love the chicken math because, you get 12 chickens and then you end up with 300 chickens and 7 cows. Like
excellent.
I'm all
Yes.
about chicken math. And so I'm like, everybody was in with chickens. Cows are my favorite animal. Like I I will die with a million cows. I don't know what I'm gonna do with them, but
Well, wait till
I
you
will
come up
look at
this
them.
week because I have a black baldy that like snuggles now. It was
Oh my
born
God.
yesterday.
I need it. So we've got a plan and we're looking at property, and right now it's a lot of dream property that we're looking at because
Mhm.
it'll probably be at least another year before we're in the
That's
boat.
that
But
happens so fast though. So
yeah, but we talk about all of these animals that we want, and I'm like, okay, but can we have cows and alpacas? Like, do they have to have separate living spaces? Like, how do we utilize a homestead space and all the animals that we want or that we're daydreaming about?
mhm.
How do we make that all happen? Like, is it are there animals that can companion together and, you know, live in the same pen? You know, is
Absolutely.
that
I
a thing?
mean, it really is. No, and there's the companion animals, and honestly, I don't know of any animals that really can't live together. The biggest thing you have to worry about is your breeding cycles.
Right.
So there are, of course, you want to have like if you have like a boar or a bull on your property, you need to have separate pens if you don't want them breeding during certain times of the year so that you can separate them out. Also, two boars or two bulls could potentially fight. So um that needs to be watched. But pretty much other than that, most of them will pasture really great together.
See, and I think that like just thank you for like settling my nerves on that because I'm like we're gonna have a million pens for all of our animals and no room for a garden.
So what you do need to look at is having your fencing match the fencing of the naughtiest animal.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So like if you have goats, you need to have watertight fencing because they're liquid.
Goats kind of scare me. I've never thought about goats. That hasn't come up in our votes.
Well, maybe that's a good thing. But I mean, and take this, I love goats. Like I would love to have a huge herd of boar goats. They're great for meat and they look like puppies when they're born. They are just adorable. But goats weren't in our cards. Like we tried it and it wasn't right for us
Yeah.
right now. I don't know. I'm not even saying goats aren't coming back into the picture because, I mean, some of our plans where we're looking at the store in the spring and we want to have a little bit more of things for people to do when they drive the 45 minutes to our store. So we are
Oh yeah.
looking at like a small petting zoo, which could very easily include some Nigerian goats, like the little ones.
Oh yeah. The dwarf goats are cute. Like
Mhm.
if
And you
I
can
could
milk
put
them too.
pajamas
Like
on my goat.
they give a lot of milk. for their size.
Oh, really? Okay.
Hmm. And, like, my favorite story right now is I want an alpaca, and I'm usually the one that's like, nope, not unless it has, a job. And my husband
Mhm.
goes, you can have an alpaca if you build the fence. And I'm like, no, that's not how this is going to go. So he
No.
decided he wanted a bull. And so he went and bought this bull. And I informed him that, once everybody's bred, we might need to consider putting this bull in another pen because we don't want him breeding our beef girls. And he's like, oh, then I'll have to build a fence for him. And I'm like, yeah. And then my alpaca can live with him.
There you go.
So we've been referring to our future alpaca as the emotional support alpaca for our
You
bull.
know what? Ferdinand, the movie. Yes.
Yeah.
They have I think it's a goat in that movie, but
Yeah. Although I did have someone tell me this weekend that alpacas need a second alpaca. Like they can't just be friendly with a bull.
oh my gosh, I was there for that conversation.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I might just need two alpacas and that's just gonna be how it is.
And you
But
can breed them, and then by the time there's a baby, I can have the baby.
a little baby Crea. But
Little baby.
I mean, and I'm excited about it because not only are alpacas really cute and sweet, they can also be in my petting zoo. They can be emotional support for my bull. And when I shear them every year, we can make those wool balls for our dryers and sell them in the store.
Oh my God, I love wool dryer
Bam,
balls.
he has a use.
He has a use. Wool dryer balls are my favorite. I will never go back.
Oh, no. I think I have one of your dryer balls.
Oh, okay. I keep 8 in my dryer at all times, and I counted them the other day, and I was like, oh, there's 7. And then I was like, well, I also have a toddler that likes to open my
Yeah.
dryer and use them as toys. So,
No, I was folding the swag shirts at the conference and a wool ball flew out and went across the conference room. So,
oh, that's mine.
yep.
It's all right. Throw it in the wash. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you don't want it in my wash.
Okay. Well, I'll pick it up and throw it in my wash. I think all of mine need a wash right now, anyways.
Well, there you go.
They get a little staticky eventually.
Yeah, we've been out like dealing with the calf and like all my clothes are covered in like colostrum and stuff. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nope. Nope. Please don't remind.
No, I'll leave it with the conference gear until you come get it.
Um, okay. So let's talk animal butchering.
Yes.
I don't love it. I've, okay, we are hunters
Hmm.
and I am all about like you respect your food and we hunt to eat and that is what we survive on, typically. We did the pig with you guys
Hmm.
and I just like how do you separate your pets from your butcher animals? Is that my so when I was growing up, my grandma did that. My grandma had a cow and she bred, bred her every year and there, for a meat, the baby from the cow was meat.
Hmm.
You raise the baby, we eat the baby, but that was her cow. And for several years.
Hmm.
Um But how do you choose like this one's my pet and I'm gonna keep it, and then this one is my meat and I'm gonna eat this for dinner? How do you
That's
separate
like
that emotional attachment? Because I can't
it's
do it.
it's a really common question and it's something that the way I grew up, like nobody was pet. Um Even like our hunting dogs, like my dad raised hunting dogs. We had like 30 or 40 at a time. And even those, like they weren't pets. Like we didn't pet them, we didn't love on them. The only time they got praise is when they did good while hunting. Um, so I kind of like grew up with that separation because then we had a dog in the house that was the dog you pet. And then we had
Mhm.
dogs. And so I learned that separation all the way down to dogs that are normally something that you pet no matter that are your pets and
Right.
friendly with from day one. But what I've found on our homestead and what I teach our kids is we name our friends, not our food. So we generally do not name anything that we plan on eating.
Hmm.
Occasionally, like we have this new heifer calf right now. I don't see us keeping her for breeding because she's kind of a weird crossbreed, but she's not off the table for keeping. So the kids are calling her Pumpkin, but honestly, in another year, she might be on the, or, and actually for her, it'd be almost 2 years, she'd be on the butcher block. And I'm okay with that because I have it in my head right off the bat before this calf was ever born, before we knew if it was a boy or a girl or anything, that this calf was going to be our beef calf,
Hmm.
like the beef for our family, because we milk her mom, and that's our cow that we milk, and she's our friend. Whereas we
Right.
have two Angus heifers that whatever they calve, I know we're either going to sell for beef or we're going to sell as steers like to 4-H kids. So I know that those aren't animals that are going to stay with us. So even though like I was, on the ground in the barn last night, snuggling this calf, trying to keep it warm, and I loved every second of it. And I have all these cute little videos of him like sniffing the phone and like it's adorable with the giant eyelashes. He's a cute calf. By the time we're ready to butcher him, if he stays on the property, I'll probably be so annoyed with his antics, I'll be happy to see him go. And that's just usually how it goes.
Right.
With our pigs, we have so many, like we have our sows, those are our babies. We go out there and we hand feed them eggs, and they're they get loves and snuggles, and they're named, and they all have these personalities, and we don't you either don't butcher them or we don't plan to butcher them. Whereas
Hmm.
every piglet they have, we know is going into the food system, whether it's for us or
Right.
4-H kids, or occasionally there'll be like a really nice gilt that comes out of it or something. We're like, oh, let's go ahead and keep her for breeding. But our plan is that every piglet born is going for food. So we can still enjoy when they're little and cute because it's still fun, but we just know right off the bat that they're never somebody that we're going to be keeping. Now, when you guys were at the house, we butchered a sow.
Hmm.
This sow, we've had her since she was a piglet. Like we raised her completely on the farm. We bought her as a piglet. And but after killing three litters and then getting very aggressive with both my husband and my son who feeds, and 700 pounds getting aggressive with a 14-year-old boy, she's done. Like I had no desire to keep her any longer, and didn't have any sad feelings about butchering her. I was like, you are going to
Right.
be a positive in our freezer.
Yeah. And she's delicious.
She is
Um,
delicious. I think we've ate pork
so
like
good.
probably every other night since we butchered.
Oh my gosh. Um, I actually just took out a pack of sausage this morning and I was like, I'm gonna make this into like pre-made sausage patties for breakfast sandwiches because
Nice.
like I know I have it, so now an egg just isn't good enough.
Right? I actually did that yesterday. I did the flat packages and put them right into the electric skillet and cooked them until they were ready to flip, and then cut them up with the spatula into 8 pieces. And then
Mm.
they were like perfect squares for my breakfast sandwiches.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. But I mean, I do have to tell you, I was a little disappointed with the pork chops.
Okay, Rick was too, and I just,
Okay.
yeah,
I
I
didn't know if
was
you guys had
like,
had a chance to eat any yet, so they were a little tough. I didn't mind the flavor, but they were a little on the tough side. But that's because she was probably about a 3-year-old sow, 3 to 4-year-old sow.
mhm.
So that not all is lost though. Slow cook them.
Yeah, well, I decided that I'm a big pork fried rice person.
Hmm.
So I think that because you cut them up so small for pork fried rice that they don't
Yep.
have the opportunity to be tough.
Yeah.
So I was
That
like,
or
we'll just dedicate those.
we do a lot as like in the crock pot with like a soup or something over it, or another one,
Hmm.
carnitas in the pressure cooker.
Oh, yummy.
Yeah. So, but we owe you some bacon and it is good.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, Ron smoked
I'm
and
so
cut
excited for
up
the bacon.
like what was it, 30
That's
pounds
my
of
jam.
bacon or something like that, and it is
It's a
delicious.
lot.
Yeah, we're having some on loaded baked potatoes tonight.
Ooh, yummy. I love
Yes.
baked potatoes too.
So I mean, I think we kind of got off track, but at the same time, being a homesteader has a lot to do with being in the kitchen and everything you can do. I mean, one of the next probably biggest question I get is I would love to buy a whole hog, or I'd love to buy a whole chicken, or whatever, or we want to butcher, but we don't know what to do with all of that product.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, so that's a really great leeway into that next conversation of everything that even we did with this sow.
Yeah. Well, and so like for me, butchering, once I can get past the emotional part of it,
Hmm.
like I love to be in the kitchen, and I love, and this is a big reason why, it's not why we're big hunters. We're big hunters just because my
Because we
husband
love to
loves the
hunt.
sport. But yes, but I love that we eat so much game meat
Hmm.
because I don't ever stress about feeding that to my toddler or where is this actually coming from?
Hmm.
And and I see on Facebook all the time people are like, how do you get past the flavor? And I'm like, if we cook beef, that's weird for me. Like beef tastes weird now that
Yeah.
we've been so many years on,
Well, yeah, and we're like primarily on grass-fed beef at this point, which is really similar to elk.
yeah, on elk and deer meat. And,
Hmm.
and I cooked the most delicious turkey this year for Thanksgiving.
Mm.
And my father-in-law took that one out of his front yard.
Yeah,
So thanks for selling the cabin.
no
You know,
problem.
and I'm like, when everybody was kind of nervous, they were like, oh, wild turkeys kind of taste funny. And I cooked it, and it was the, like, hands down the most delicious turkey any of us sitting at that table had ever eaten.
It's all about the
And
moisture.
so, oh yeah, absolutely. And it was so, I mean, just flavorful and, and so for me, I'm like, how do you not want to eat the freshest of
Hmm.
food? Like, I can't, I want to cook that way and I
Hmm.
want to eat that way. And it's so much better for my family.
It has changed my mindset so much. And, that getting past the butchering part, when we're hunting, we're out there for the sport of hunting. So then when you take that meat home, you're like, yeah, this is the reward from my sport. Where I get like on the homestead, it can be a little bit harder. One thing, most of the time, I don't go up to the barn for butcher or for slaughter. The guys
Hmm.
do that. And then they bring it back. And to me, once the hide is off, they're just handing me a piece of meat and to, process or
Hmm.
do whatever we do with it. So that really takes that emotional piece out of it. And, a lot of people, there are options of having like a friend or a family member or even like a mobile slaughter come handle that for you. You can even have like
Okay,
the
let me add
mobile,
that to my notes. Don't do
yeah.
it yourself.
You can even have mobile slaughter, like come to the house. Like if you have a cow that you're like, we don't have the means to be able to like clean this cow and skin it because we can't, hoist it up or whatever. You can have mobile slaughter come, take it to the butcher shop and they cut it into primals. And then you just go pick it up like in your primal cuts, which is about 8 large hunks of meat.
Okay.
So, and I think I mean, it costs you next to nothing. I mean, maybe $150 or something.
I actually love that because
Right. Now, when it comes to your chickens and rabbits, like
and I almost feel like that's
a little bit of a delay. Um, when it comes to your chickens and rabbits, that's one that you buy a group of chickens that are for butcher, and that's just it. That I mean, they're for a butcher. And honestly, like if you get Cornish crosses, they're so nasty, you're happy to see them go. You're like, bye, Felicia.
so separate chicken eggs and meat.
Yeah.
Chicken eggs. Oh my gosh.
Laying hens and
Yep.
meat birds. Yeah. No, and with those, I feel like, you put them in the cones and you like, chop their necks and stuff. And it's just a little different. Like there's that separation, like once you're slipping them in a cone and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's still another one that I'll go out and help, but I'm not the one doing most of that. The guys are, and then they bring them in. Actually, Ron does chicken start to finish. Like I don't even mess with them.
You just make the broth.
I make all the yummies. That's my job.
Yes.
But he was like all excited when he
Okay.
married this girl that had a dad as a hunting guide. And I'm like, oh no, you're touching the raw meat.
I don't
I,
do
I,
that.
I totally do it. But like I'll tell you what, if you can handle that while I handle something else, like we're solid.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's, you know, I I've decided that cutting up deer is now my chore. Like
Hmm.
you go out, you sit in the cold, you bring me the deer, I will cut the meat.
Right. Which we had so much fun with that sausage. I mean, what did we end up with? Like 400 pounds of sausage?
Oh, something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
It filled an entire freezer in my house.
Yeah. And that was just your part that you took home.
Yeah,
And we still, between us, have like another 100 pounds of fat that we can render for lard or use it for sausage and like doing ground venison and stuff.
I know. I have to go buy more jars so that I can have a render day at my house because I need that freezer space.
Yeah. I know we need to render a bunch too. The freezer space, and because we're getting ready to take lambs in to be butchered in a month, and then a week later another another butcher hog in. So I am
Hmm.
out of freezer space.
Yeah, it's and their freezers are expensive. So I'm like, how else can we I I'm gonna start canning some meat, I think,
I
while
love
I'm
canned
while I'm
ground
bored
meat,
in the snow.
like the sausages, like especially the plain bulk sausage we did. Fry that up with just some salt and pepper and can it, and it turns out amazing. And then like on taco night or whatever, you can just dump and you're ready to go.
Yes.
The
See,
kids like that too.
I love that. I love like the quick and get it done dinners because I don't want to be in the kitchen for 12 hours in a day.
Yeah, well,
Some days I do.
I think that's another question, another like topic that I get a lot of time with, people who are going to homesteading or the home cooking is how much time they think that they need to spend in their kitchen. And that is not the case.
Um, I feel
Unless you
like
want
for
it to
me,
be.
when we brought in all of the garden stuff, my
Hmm.
mom and my sister came up. Okay, and mind you, like we live on a half acre. I had this tiny garden, and my father-in-law bought me a book on square foot gardening. So I was like, heck
Nice.
yes, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna get like the most bang for my buck here. So I do this square foot garden. Um, I had so much stuff come out of my garden.
Good for you.
Insane amounts of vegetables. And my mom and my sister came up and we spent an entire weekend, like around the clock all weekend, canning vegetables
Hmm.
and tomato sauce and spaghetti sauce and oh my gosh, green beans out your ears. And I was just like, I like this much in vegetables out of my tiny garden. I can't even imagine what a big garden is going to look like. And I'm so excited for it.
Yeah. So, a couple tricks on that. One is like, okay, you guys spent all weekend doing it, but now you have spaghetti sauce for the year.
Yeah.
Like you have dump meals for the next year. Like, so that's
Yes.
awesome. Now, what we do, because you know how busy our lives are, like, holy crud, half the time we don't have time for anything. And we have those two huge gardens. From the time gardening season starts, my canning stuff does not leave my kitchen island.
Yeah.
It is always there. Now, I have a day where I'm like, okay, it's Saturday. I'm going to get up and I'm just going to can. I have an obscene amount of tomatoes I need to can all day. Now, on the flip side, if we like take the afternoon and go huckleberry picking or something, when we come home, I immediately do a batch of huckleberry syrup.
Hmm.
Like I don't make it a canning day. I can as we go. So if I have
Okay.
enough for a batch, I'm doing it all right then.
That's a good theory.
Anything with the freezing and stuff too, like I'll bring a bunch of stuff in and we're like, oh, we're making fries tonight. Like, or we do zucchini fries is one of them we do
Hmm.
a lot. Like we're making fries tonight. Like the kids will sit there for the next like hour and a half and make zucchini fries. We only need like 5 minutes worth of fries. We freeze the rest.
Yeah. See, and I freeze all my berries. We did an astronomical amount of picking this year, and I was so excited about it. But we are not like jelly people. We don't do a lot of jelly.
Hmm.
And I'm not really a syrup person. And so a lot of my berries are for baking.
Oh, okay.
So I have actually it's my fridge freezer is entirely packed full of berries. And I'm debating like I'm really debating dehydrating some of them
Hmm.
just to see how it goes. Just to see how they rehydrate. And I know, we
If
have
you
raspberries in
dehydrate
there.
blueberries, if
We
you
didn't,
dehydrate like blueberries or huckleberries or something, and then get a blueberry powder, you can make your own oatmeal packets.
oh, gosh, that's ingenious. We didn't do blueberries this year, but we did the You Pick Raspberry Farm
Hmm.
3 separate times. I have no idea what possessed me, why I thought that was a good idea.
So I know you say you aren't a syrup person. Do you know what I would do with that? I would make a ton of syrup and put it in my iced tea.
Oh, I could do that with raspberries. But
We do it with
huckleberries, I
huckleberries too.
feel like if you don't bake with your huckleberries, you're just wasting them.
So, okay, here's another thing I do. When I make juice with my huckleberries, what's left over, I take part of it and I make a like well, basically all of it. I make like a compote type thing where I add like cornstarch and some sugar and stuff.
Hmm.
And I either put it over a yogurt or use it as a topping for my huckleberry ice cream.
That would be good.
So then, I mean, I definitely bake with my huckleberries and stuff, but the stuff that I do want to make, I'm using every last bit of those huckleberries.
You're broadening my horizons a little bit.
That's the point.
Um, I yeah, an astronomical amount of and I feel super grateful because we do have an astronomical amount of food this year from the garden and spending all summer picking and um the pig and just everything.
Hmm.
And
It's one of those ones where my freezers are full, so I don't have to like that helps my bank account a lot.
mhm.
But, going into some of these seasons that we're going into where we're already seeing sugar shortages this year, um, Tyson Foods just euthanized 34,000 birds
Oh my
on two
gosh, I saw that.
farms. And that's,
Ugh.
I know they shut down 5 plants. The 2 farms where they euthanize are only a fraction of what goes into one of those plants. So that many birds are being euthanized and they won't let them go out into the local food systems because of it's a, food safety hazard. They are already setting us up for another 2020.
I know. It makes me sick to think about. And I think, okay, so I became a mom in COVID era. So my daughter was born in 2020. And
By
when
the
I
way,
tell
guys, her
you,
daughter is what, 3 weeks younger than
mhm,
Branch, my little
yes.
terrorist Branch. So they're a fun
Yeah.
pair.
They're great. Um, but when I tell you that COVID shortage was the most terrifying thing I've ever been through,
Hmm.
it this is that is why that is why I want this homestead.
Uh-huh.
Just strictly the COVID shortage is why I need a homestead.
That was traumatizing and like caused a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. Like you're not alone.
Well, and I don't think it would have been so traumatizing if it wasn't already like a peak moment in my life.
Yeah.
Join motherhood. We moved
Here's a
shortly
baby, you have
after.
nothing to give it.
Yeah, 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 here's a baby. Good luck finding diapers. Um, we moved shortly after I had Huntley from Colorado up to Idaho. So COVID was rough and the now it's funny because my family teases me. They call me the Little House on the Prairie girl. That's it.
Good.
I don't even have a name anymore. Just the Little House on the Prairie girl.
Just call you Laura.
And I'm like, I'm okay with that,
Hmm.
honestly, because I will sit here and make my sandwich bread and turn around and make a loaf of sourdough and pull pork that we butchered out of my freezer and
Right.
have dinner, and I'm good.
We did that the other night. I made breakfast sandwiches for dinner because we're obsessed with our pork right now.
Yeah.
But it was breakfast sandwiches. I made homemade biscuits. The eggs were out of our garden. I fried the eggs in lard from another pig. The only thing I had bought was cheese.
Yeah.
And it just felt good. And you feel a different sense of accomplishment and like
Hmm.
power. Oh, not power, I don't know if this is the right word, but like control. Control's a bad word too. I don't know.
But I do feel like it is empowering. Like
Hmm.
it is, there is a sense of power there because I don't need you. I mean, we went to Walmart today, and this is the first time I've been, I don't know, in a while. I I don't even leave town ever.
Right.
I there's no point. But we went to Walmart today, and the chaos that, I mean, just walking into Walmart and the anxiety that I felt, I take me home.
Hmm.
I I will I will make Christmas presents this year. We don't need to buy. I will
Right.
hand make something because I don't even want to be in the stores. I
Hmm.
don't so and then, we were talking about grocery shopping while we were there, and I was, no, thank you. Nope, I'm good.
Yeah.
We don't need
I
groceries.
know we do sometimes when we're down there, but I mean, when we have four kids versus your guys's one, like sometimes we just need
Yeah.
to be able to buy bulk sizes.
You're right. Yeah. No, and I get that. And
Or the fact that my children think that socks are one-time use.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah, they're spreading that trait into my home. I have a million missing socks now.
I told my older ones I'm gonna start making you like knit socks and then maybe you won't lose them.
Seriously. Mine ran around the other day though with her Christmas stocking on her foot. And
There's
she
that.
thought that that was a very warm sock, so I it's fine.
That conversation of everybody calling you like the little house on the prairie girl. I think that that's a big issue that our generation is facing right now. Like, not that we're being called that because that's positive. That's a compliment. But the fact that like our parents and stuff don't understand what we're doing
Yes.
because them and our grandparents, even some of our great grandparents, were sold convenience.
Mm-hmm.
And they think we're crazy for what we do. And I mean, remember this conversation with my mother-in-law shortly after she moved up here. So, I mean, you and most of my listeners know the story of my husband's liver disease. So it's like I do everything from scratch that I can for him to help him heal. And I was standing
Mm-hmm.
there, I was making sourdough, I think. And my mother-in-law's like, "Ugh, I've never had time for this type of stuff. It just seems like such a waste of time and just on and on and on." And I'm like, I'm literally doing this to save your son's life. So for one, if you could just go away. But on the flip side, I mean, I think it just really shows that lack of understanding of why we want to embrace such healthy foods that like, give us like true energy and true nutrition versus everything that's come out of a box for the last several years or several generations.
Yes, yeah. No, absolutely. And so when I was a kid, we lived on a farm with my grandma, with my grandparents. And we had the chickens and the cows and pigs, and pigs have me traumatized. I don't think I can ever own one. Whole nother story. But we
We're gonna have to change that because you work for a pig farmer. So we might just have
I
to plop
know.
you down in a pen with a bunch of piglets and see what happens.
The babies are fine. It's the big ones. They're like all the large adult sized pigs are out to get me. You cannot convince me otherwise. Um, but I grew up with that. And then as I became a teenager and my grandma passed away and, those things stopped, there was no more garden, there was no more animals. Like it went away, it disappeared. And then you get on the bandwagon of it's just easier to go to the grocery store or,
Hmm.
I survived my early 20s, I think with one pan in my kitchen. I ate
Feel
out
ya.
every meal.
Hmm.
And now,
I'd like get off work on a Friday and go get like a take and bake pizza, and that's what I would eat for the next 3 days.
yes, yes. Subway sandwiches, you can cut those into fourths. And,
Right.
when I was 21, a fourth of that sandwich was all I needed. That was dinner. But it now I'm at a point in my life where, I'll order pizza every once in a while, but I could make that pizza and it's less expensive and it
Hmm.
probably tastes better.
Yep.
So, you know, or bread. I don't, I, you can't convince me to eat store-bought bread right now. You
I'm
can't.
like scared of what is in store-bought bread at this point, and it's hard. Like Branch making himself 7 sandwiches a day, I can't keep up with that with the baking.
Yeah,
But other than Branch's peanut butter and jellies like all day long, we pretty much do our own bread because I am not touching that stuff.
yeah. I'll have to send you my bread recipe because Huntley makes my bread. I don't even bake my
Oh,
bread anymore. The only
that's
thing I do is put it in the oven.
Savannah usually does our bread, and we can crank it out.
Yeah.
It's just Branch's affinity to like 7 layer honey sandwiches that he's going to microwave and then eat in the dryer. So
Yes.
he
Yeah,
can
no,
do
I
that
was
with
actually really impressed that I actually tweaked a recipe that I found online.
uh-huh.
Um, for bread, I tweaked it because I didn't love the consistency when it came out, so I just changed the recipe. And it is a literal 5 ingredient bread recipe, and start to finish, my 3-year-old does it.
Nice. Yeah, like I do mine in the bread machine and pull it before the bake
Mm-hmm.
cycle and then put it in the oven, and it's like I start it and don't even have I like it takes me all of like my own time, maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah. Nope. I set out all of the ingredients. I pre-measure everything because she's
Yeah.
3.
Uh-huh.
But I set out all the ingredients, and from start to finish, she makes my bread.
Nice.
And but honestly, aside from the fact that I don't have to do that, I love that I'm teaching her
Hmm.
at 3 that she's feeding our family.
Yeah. Branch made 2 pounds of butter the other day with the butter churn.
Yeah, I know. I'm so proud of him.
I know he was so proud of himself too. Like he thought that was the best.
That was the bee's knees.
Yeah. And now he's gonna get bored of it now that the cow's in milk because we're gonna be like, Ranch, we need you to make 2 pounds a day.
Just I'll bring Huntley over and they can take turns,
There
and
we go.
then I'll, and then I'll be like, "Oh, that's Huntley's butter. That goes home with me." No, honestly, cream cheese is the next on my list because I have mastered homemade bagels. And we are a bagel family.
Uh-huh.
That's what Huntley eats, like 3 meals a day is bagels.
Nice.
Um, so now I have to figure out how to make the cream cheese because I can make the bagels.
Well, now that Bailey's in milk, I'll have a lot of milk to practice with, so we'll get in the kitchen and figure it out.
Yes.
Because I've tried it a couple times and it turned out smelling really bad. So I did something wrong, but we're gonna keep giving it a shot.
See, and dairy used to scare me, and now I'm like, I need a cow. I need the
Hmm.
milk.
It used to scare me too. I was a food safety specialist for years. So I was the person out there being like, no, you're crazy to feed your child raw milk. And now I'm like, you're crazy that you're feeding your child store-bought milk. So, all right. So we're kind of getting to the end of our time, but what's like one actionable step that you're like ready for, but don't know? Like it's just been like eating at you or something.
Um, I think it's the planning. I think
Yay.
that like maintaining reality while I dream. Like,
Yeah.
how do you plan all of these things in a realistic way?
Speaking of 3-year-olds, did you get back from the barn, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What up, Branch?
Did you milk my cow?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Did you feed the baby?
No.
No?
Yeah.
Dad fed the baby?
No. Stop. Oh. Good.
Branch.
Did you guys give the baby a bottle? Yeah.
Hi,
All right.
Branch.
Hi.
Hi.
All right. Say bye to Miss Hailey.
Bye.
Bye, buddy.
Okay. He busts into lots of those.
It's a job.
Right. So yeah, just the planning stage and not trying to get ahead of yourself.
Yeah. Like, how do you make it? I mean, I guess, like, is it something that you have to be there before you can plan it? Or,
Not necessarily. You're doing a lot of the things already, so you're going to be really good at the kitchen part when you move in and the garden part and stuff. Because I mean, that's one that like everybody tries to move onto a homestead and they're going to have the cow and they're going to have the pigs and they're going to have the chickens and they're going to have the goats and then they're going to have the garden and the orchard and then they're going to bake all their own bread and they get so overwhelmed they burn out super fast.
yeah.
So when making bread is already part of your day, when you already know how to have a weekend party and can everything out of your garden for the year, those are the things that are just going to be, that's life. And then you're just adding on how to do the bigger garden or, how to learn with animals. So I would, while you're looking at properties, really look for properties that have, some sort of fencing or outbuildings already that you can try to either be able to use right away or like retrofit to work right away.
Mm-hmm.
Because, some little funky shed like could make a great chicken coop right off the bat.
Right.
If you a lot of the equipment is expensive. If there's things that you're going to get, like if you're on the fence about a milk cow, don't save up for a milker right now. But if you're like, no, we already know we're getting chickens and that's a done deal. Like if you happen to catch some equipment, chicken like waterers and those types of things on sale, pick them up if you can afford them. Just start like planning on that type of stuff so that, like your finances are in line. And so that when you get there and when you are ready, you can be like, okay, my chicken coop is ready. I just need birds for it. On the flip side, also plan like based on what time of the year you're going to be moving in. You may not know that, but like I have this really great book that I've used over the years. Of course, I can't find it right now. It's called like the Homestead Planner or something. It's, published by Storybooks. It doesn't have everything you need, but it has a really great outline of how to do everything seasonally.
Okay.
And it makes you kind of think about some stuff, like it even tells you when to cut your firewood and those types of things. So no matter what season you end up moving onto this piece of property, you can jump right in and make sure that you don't come spring, like, you move in late fall and you're like, well, there's nothing we can do. And then come spring, you're like, oh man, I could have done all of this stuff, or I should have been doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
So a book like that might really help to be planning in advance.
That's really great to know because anybody that knows me knows that I'm late to the party every time.
So I'll make sure I link that book in the show notes because I'm sure other people will be excited for that one as well. It's helped us over the years. Also with that whole husband getting on board thing. My husband could not understand an agrarian calendar to save his life, nor can he still. Which an agrarian calendar is that if you want, calves in the spring, you have to breed the summer before.
Mm-hmm.
My husband's like, we want calves in the spring, so we should probably start thinking about breeding them next spring. And I'm like, no, that's, we do that in another order. And having something like that where you can teach, your spouse, maybe your cousin and her spouse who you haven't, who maybe haven't worked on farms and stuff before. And as your kids are getting older, start teaching them out of that book as well. It'll make them understand that routine that goes into homestead life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Guess I'll
So
have to Go Amazon shopping now.
Right? So my favorite question for all my guests is, what does keep growing mean to you?
Oh man, and I knew that you were going to ask this
You
too.
knew it.
I
You're
should have been
literally
so
like my
prepared.
assistant. You
I'm literally your Hailey. Um,
Yes, and
I
everybody
think
needs a Hailey.
yes, that's valid. Even me sometimes. Um, I guess keep growing means to keep putting in the work, because at some point the storm is going to be over and there's going to be a rainbow, and your work is going to be that rainbow, and it's just gonna all be all right in the end, but it's not ever going to be okay if you don't work for it.
I love that.
You can't
So,
ever get anywhere without the work.
well, thank you so much for coming on, Hailey. I knew that this would just be a really fun conversation. Do you want people to be able to follow you?
Oh, sure.
Okay, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram or Facebook. I will have to send you all of my stuff because I don't know it.
All right.
I'll send that to you so you can link it.
I'll make sure I link that in the show notes because Hailey's a lot of fun and she does a lot of stuff with us. So she'd be a good one to follow as she's starting her homestead journey. Well, thank you and have a good one.
You too.
Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, please head over to your favorite podcast player and leave a comment and review. This helps me to know what you're enjoying and helps others find an episode that can help them. Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at Homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing.